Hey everybody, this is Love Mura, and this is going to be a tutorial about the 2D animation program I use called AnimeEffects. It's a free program for Windows, Mac, and Linux. I had a couple of people asking me to make a more in-depth tutorial on it, so here it is. This is the website you can download the program from. I'm going to link it in the description so you can go download that. They're also on GitHub, I believe, yeah. So for the installation though, before you really start doing anything in AnimeEffects, you're gonna want to download a separate program along with it. It is called FFmpeg. Without it, you will likely run into this error that I'm showing on screen right now when you try to export your animation. They give you a little tip on how to install it there, so you'll need both those things. But yeah. Once you get both those things downloaded and installed, you unzip the file. It'll look like this. And you can just run the AnimeEffects application just like that. So here's what AnimeEffects looks like when you first open it up. First thing you're gonna do is want to go to File, New Project, and it'll open this New Project dialog box. Now here you can set your initial resource. What that means, basically whatever, I believe it takes PSD, PNG, JPEG, or GIFs, whatever file type you want to import into the program. For this, I'm just gonna grab. Max frame is the length of the animation. I usually do 120 frames because most of the animations I make are really short and looping. You also have the option to specify your canvas size. You can change that to whatever pixel value you want. I'm not going to do that because when you disable this, it will just take the size of whatever your initial resource is. You can also start a canvas without an initial resource, but then you'd have to go and import images you want to use in it afterwards, which is more work, so I'm gonna press OK. And it has imported the PSD file into the program. So now basically we have this canvas, and to manipulate our layers you're gonna go down to this target dock window, and you can see all of the layers I have here set up, her wings, her hair, whatever. Once you have a layer selected, you're probably gonna end up using the toolbox up here and the property dock over here to actually animate everything. The actual animation in this program is created by using keyframes on the timeline, and I will be showing you how to do that. But in timeline controls, you can go to the start or end of the timeline. You can go forward and backwards a frame if you need to. Press play, and you can toggle this down here, which will make the animation loop. Stop that. So first one I'm going to talk about actually is the view settings up here. Pretty standard view settings, you know. You can rotate the canvas either way, click the dot to put it back, zoom in and out with the scroll wheel. Then the unique tools, these two right here. The show polygon wireframe, let me select her leg for now because I'm going to use that as an example later. Toggling this will show you the polygons that it created for the image, but I usually have this turned off. I don't usually have it on. You don't really need to see it. And finally we have cut images by the frame, which is essentially a crop tool. So for example, if I grab this background, I guess, and I drag it out of the canvas bounds and I click this tool, it crops it to the canvas size. So if you have a background that's super huge or something and you want to trim it down, you can. Okay, now on to the actual animation tools, which are in the toolbox over here. First tool is the camera cursor, which is essentially just a pan tool. Pan around the canvas however you need to. Pretty straightforward. The next tool is our scale, rotate, translate. What this allows us to do is if you select a layer, you'll see this box. With this tool you can set the anchor point of your layer, you can scale, rotate. To set the anchor point, you're going to go down to this little dot under SRT transform, drag that up to wherever you want your anchor point, and click back on the arrow, and now it will rotate around that. Oh, also do note when you do anything with these transform tools, it will be creating keyframes down here, so if you don't want that, make sure it's at, you know, wherever you need it to be in the timeline. If you're doing setup stuff like that, you're going to want it to be at the beginning. So you can rotate by clicking this dot and dragging. You can scale in either direction by clicking aside and dragging. Or if you want it to keep the aspect ratio, you click a corner, any of these corners that's not the dot, and it will scale while keeping the aspect. And that's the transform tool. Now these next two tools, the bone creating tool and the bone posing tool, work together. So bone creating and bone posing are basically like a type of deformation that allows you to add bones to your still image. So I'm gonna actually make an example because it's easier to show it than explain it. I'm gonna give this leg a bone structure. So in order to create bones, you're gonna have the bone creating tool selected, make sure this plus is selected, and you're gonna start making bones from the base to the tip. I don't need that many bones for this example, so I'm just gonna start here, put one at her knee, and put one at the end of her foot. Now the next thing you're gonna want to do is select this adjust influence tool. What this does is basically allows you to select how much of the image you want to be a part of the bone. In this case, I do want her whole leg to be the bone structure. So I'm gonna click the wireframe and just drag out until the red covers the entire form. If you don't drag it all the way out and you leave like slivers out like this, it will be weird when you try to actually animate it. So you want to make sure you cover the whole thing. Gonna hide her body, make sure. Yep. Okay, so that's your bones created. The next tool is the bone posing tool. And this is how you actually animate your bones. Scroll down over here, you will see pose and this plus. Clicking the plus will create a keyframe of whatever type we want to pose. So I'm going to make a pose so that stays here at first. Then I'm going to drag like to 1 second, I guess. And with the bone posing tool, you can just click any of the joints and move them around. Just like that. I don't know, like that. Sure. If I press play. Oh, I don't have... Oh. It is looping, but if you want it to loop seamlessly, you will need to go to Project and click Loop and check this box. This is loop animation. Forgot to do that. And there it goes. So that's how the bones work. The next tool in the toolbox is the mesh creation tool. I've never really used this, but I believe it's for if you need something other than the default mesh that it creates for your images. What this does, you can basically click and draw triangles, draw polygons, and it will make a shape. And you can click out of it. And it cut off her foot because I drew the mesh straight through it, but yeah, that's what that does. And not super sure where you would use this, but it does exist. I don't need it though, so I'm gonna go ahead and highlight this keyframe and delete it, please. There we go. The last tool, which I think is probably the most useful in this program. It's called Freeform Deform. And what it basically is like a brush liquefy tool. So if you need some very, very fine detail, you can use this for it. You can change the brush size, you can change the feathering. So let's, for example, do her hair. So again, you want to create a keyframe for FFD down there. So that's what it looks like. And then the next one. I'm going to turn up the feathering. And I'm just going to drag it ever so slightly. There's that. And you can see it moves with the deformation. That's pretty cool. But if you ever transform it too much, you can just select the eraser under here and click and hold, and it will just put it right back to how it was at the beginning. It just transforms it back like you never did it. So yeah, this is the tool that I think would help if, for example, say in this leg transformation here with the bones, I don't like, it gets a little skinny here on the back of her knee. So I'm gonna put an FFD there just to drag it out a bit. So I'm gonna, again, start right there, then here, matching with the pose keyframe there. I'm just gonna drag it out a bit. So now it looks a little bit more normal. Just a little. So that's everything in the toolbox. The next part I need to talk about is the property dock over here, which is the other thing you will be using for all your animation. So you've already seen me using the property dock a little if you need to manually create keyframes or whatever. Down here you can click the pluses and it will create a keyframe wherever your marker is on the timeline. Just like that. It also allows you to put in very specific values. So for example, let's, I don't know. Let's grab her eyebrows. One of her eyebrows, sure. Okay. So let's say I want to move her eyebrow. I want to move it up, but like straight up. I don't want to change the horizontal value at all. Like that. So I'm going to drag down to here. Now you can see this position. So we want this horizontal position to stay the same. So you can copy that value, paste it over there. Now it moves in a perfectly straight line up and down. Over here you also have things you can't edit with the toolbox, such as the opacity. So let's say, I don't know, her wing. You can keyframe the opacity. It's on a scale of 0 to 1, so you'd have to type in a decimal if you want it somewhere in between. So let's do, I don't know, 0.5. Now her wing is halfway transparent. There it goes. Another thing that is important from the property dock. Actually, let me talk about this other keyframe type real quick. It's called image. And what it does is if you set this keyframe at that frame, it will change the selected image to something else entirely. So let's say that for some reason we want at 1 second-ish, we want her wing to become, I don't know, her tail, sure. And then at that frame, it will switch and stay like that. You could probably use that for like blinking or something. And finally, the most important thing in the property doc that will also help you, it is called, there we go, the depth position. What this does is essentially determine the layer order of all your parts. So for example, her eyebrows are at a position of 0, but her wings are at a position of -16. If I moved her wings up to like 1 so that they're above her eyebrows, you'll see it moves above everything else too. That's what sets the layer order. And you can also change that and keyframe that as you need to. If for some reason, like, I don't know, maybe your character's moving their arm behind their back or something and you need to switch the depth to be from in front of their body to behind their body. You can do that with that tool. That covers pretty much all the tools and just general workflow of the program. I will also note that, as far as I'm aware, other than Control-Z, there's no real shortcuts in this program. So if you want to copy or delete a frame, you have to highlight it in the timeline, right-click it, copy. If you copy it, you can paste it wherever, and you can delete it. You can also zoom in and out of the timeline with your scroll wheel. And I think that's pretty much it. So finally we get to exporting. Just for the sake of having something to show at the end, I'm going to open the actual project file for this image. So here's this. You can see I've organized my files in a lot, and there's a lot of keyframes, so I press play, she moves, and she blinks. So let's say you've done all of your animation and you're ready to export. You go to File, Export As, and you have all of these options to export as. For now I'm just going to do a GIF. You can name it whatever you want. Now the export dialog box will look a little different depending on what file type you export as. So you can change your image width and it will scale it accordingly. You can fix the aspect ratio or not. You can choose its start and end frame. I wouldn't change these if you're making something that's looping. You can change your frame rate, which is helpful if you don't need it to be at 60 FPS, which I believe it's the default. I set it to 30 for these, but you can make it even lower if you want. Lowering the FPS will also lower the file size, as well as checking Optimize Palette. I usually just check Optimize Palette anyways, because it will lower the file size and it still looks fine. And last time I exported without it, it looked a little funky, so. Finally, you just click OK, and it will export. And if it gets stuck like loading at 99%, don't panic, it's still doing it. Just wait for it to go away. There it goes. And it should be exported in our folder now. There it is, test 2. And that's it. That is the basics of AnimeEffects. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, you can comment down below. Or if you really want to, you can DM me on Twitter or Instagram, and I'll try my best to answer. I'm also going to be uploading some speed process videos of me animating in this program that I hope will, help you get a better feel for the workflow. But, yeah. So have fun using AnimeEffects. Cool free program. Wish more people knew about it. Thanks for watching.